Hello, I am Judith Hurwitz. I am an evangelist with Geminos, an AI company focused on causal AI. So very excited to be here today with Ibrahim Goken, and he is a board member to both public and private companies and a former executive at Schneider Electric, Mask, and General Electric. So it is a great privilege to have you with us today to discuss issues related to AI and digital transformation. And I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation here. So when we were having a discussion last week about this area, we started off by talking about digital transformation and the role of the Chief Digital Officer. So maybe you can discuss that role and really what it means in terms of organizations moving forward and the relationship with causal inference and causal AI.
Absolutely, Judith. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I really look forward to the conversation. And as you said in your introduction, one of the roles I had, in fact, for a large company was to be the Chief Digital Officer of that company. This was back in 2016. And at the time, the companies were looking for a leader who can really be the translator or the bridge between the business as usual, running the operations, the commercial activities, but also this new world of technology and digital and AI and machine learning and data. And they needed somebody who has an understanding of both sides and can really put together an agenda, a strategy, an organization, the capabilities to lead the company towards this new world of development. And but over time, of course, the needs have changed. The different digital transformation efforts have started. They have shown some results, and everybody starts to realize that there is not a leader really that has to be in charge of this, but the entire organization, starting from the CEO and the executive management team, has to be individually responsible for digital transformation. And that meant this convergence of business as usual, or the current business model, and the new business models that are possible by digital transformation. And the leaders who are leading those both sides have to be one and the same.
Right. And you and I had discussed the need to create these hybrid teams. So I think, one of the mistakes a lot of companies make is they say, I'll go hire some data scientists, and they see that as somehow an isolated function from people within the company, whether it's a strategist, a CIO, or somebody that really understands the current applications and current models.
Absolutely. And one of the approaches I always have taken is in a couple of the companies I worked for, is to really start with, what are the customer journeys, what are the partner journeys, and increasingly also what are the employee journeys, and then what are the capabilities we need to develop inside the company, the business capabilities to serve and enable those journeys. And then, there are, of course, some legacy stuff that you need to deal with that are serving those capabilities today in an incomplete way, and there are new things to be built. But my approach always has been to implement a product model where there is a accountable, empowered product leader in charge of each of those capabilities. And then the teams underneath them are really a hybrid team. You have subject matter experts, you have developers, you have AI scientists, you have data scientists, you have product managers. So a range of skills that you need to bring together under a leader who is both in charge of managing the legacy or the current environment and kind of building the new environment, and in the meantime retiring some of the old stuff so that the company can invest money back into the new stuff. And so those hybrid teams are extremely powerful, and they have one task and one task only, to really drive the organization forward forward from today to tomorrow without any other silo transformation team that are put in charge of kind of building anew.
Yeah, and one of the key issues is also how you take the knowledge of experts and experts who really understand the organization models, and take that knowledge and input it into software. So what's your view of that?
I think, as I said, so you have these subject matter experts, you have a huge organizational knowledge on the business, the current business. And there are, depending on the industry, some of those people are retiring, some of those knowledge is lost as people move to different organizations. So that knowledge has to be coded into software somehow so that this hybrid team actually can have almost like teams having a unified data platform today, that then they can run AI machine learning models and they can deploy them and operationalize them. You need this kind of knowledge platform, if you will, or some people call it knowledge graph or other ways, but you need to code this knowledge into software through modeling tools.
Right.
And there, I think where causal modeling becomes a hugely important tool that we can use as also an evolution from the traditional AI machine learning, kind of the next generation of operationalizing this knowledge and making the organization better in decision making.
Because a lot of the traditional data scientists would begin with the data and not begin with a model. So your perspective seems to be that you both have to begin with the model and also understand what data can make that model operational.
Absolutely. So you have to start with a problem to solve. You have to have an understanding of the business environment that you're facing, the market environment, the competitive environment, the current situation, the baseline. And then you look at, okay, now I have an understanding of the business model. Where do I have gaps? And where do I have to go? And where do I have strengths? Do I have data to help me with decision making in this area? Or do I have gaps? And how do I go and acquire that data? Or is it impossible to acquire that data? And therefore, I have to conclude that maybe I have to focus on something else. So this, but also at the same time, it's almost always impossible to build a full, perfect model of the world. So sometimes you have to start a little bit with what data you have available, and then can that help as a proxy proxy to the model that you want to build. But it can never be the primary. You can never just say, I have lots of data, let's figure out what to do with this data. The approach should be always, I have a business problem to solve, I know an imperfect model of the world, and I'm trying to make it better. And I know some of the causal relationships potentially, and some of that are so strong that I'm absolutely sure. Some of that I'm not. So I need to get some data, and potentially can use correlation as a proxy to causation, which sometimes helps you get to the next stage. So you have to really figure out this hybrid approach in an evolutionary way that you start with what you have, and then you gradually build what you don't have, and then get to the final outcome.
Yeah. And another key issue is explainability, which, if you don't have explainability, it's very hard to have a model that really reflects your business. So what's your view around explainability?
It's extremely important for both to be able to enable the human consumption of AI models, because we tend to ask for an explanation and want to rationalize whatever the model is proposing. And any model that's explainable, even if it's maybe slightly less accurate than an unexplainable model, I think has a better chance of getting deployed in operational environments, because people want to know why that decision was made and kind of have a trace of, here are the 4 reasons why the model is recommending this set of actions. I think it's very important. But the second is when it comes to trustworthiness of AI. And now people are realizing, now that we have gone through this AI transformation, we have built models at scale, but now we have to actually work across the organization, across potentially legal, across human resources, across other functions, because now we are touching into stuff that we want customers to trust us or our employees to trust. If you are building AI models for the human resources function to do some predictions on your employees or on recruiting, you better have those models without bias and that are trustworthy and that align with AI ethics. So that's the other piece, that you really want to go to this trust and trustworthiness and ethics, and that's why explainability becomes an important element.
So let's talk a little more about bias. What techniques, and that are provided by Causal AI can help you deal with the issue of bias in data?
I think the most important is really we talk about modeling the world, and we talk about having the proper model that represents the real world, and that's kind of if your data distribution that you're training your models is not aligned with the model of the business or the model of the world, then clearly you will introduce biases into the process. That just because maybe you don't have enough data, I mean, we talked about before, maybe over the past 20 years, if you look at the diversity of the executive ranks, maybe not the current, that does not represent the current situation. Only over the maybe past 5 years, we have had more women represented in senior executive positions, but maybe not in the last 20 years. So you have to really figure out, what's in the data, what's the sort of history that you have to look at, and what represents the current world the best, and then you can be a little bit more certain that your models are unbiased, and that's where causal modeling can help, as you said, to build this causal relationships, the model of the world, and then you can figure out, okay, how do I match the data to this model?
Excellent. So to sort of summarize what we've been talking about, it's creating a hybrid team, focusing on not just data science itself, but looking at what business problem you're trying to solve, having trust of AI, having the ability to be able to explain what a model is doing, and then avoiding having bias within your data. So I think if we look at those three issues as really fundamental and one of the benefits of causal AI, then that really begins to help organizations move forward.
Absolutely. And a couple of other things that really you have to be able to ask what if questions, you have to be able to do simulations. These are even more advanced capabilities that are brought by causal modeling that we haven't touched today, but there's sort of, I see it as the next really evolution of AI to make our decision making so much better. And the final piece is really, you have to, again, spread this across the organization. It has to be built by citizen developers, not necessarily technical software developers. And it has to be as low code and no code as possible, so that the entire organization can engage in creating this new future, the next generation of intelligence for us, for all the enterprises. So very exciting times.
It is very exciting time, and thank you so much for your insights today. And
thanks so much, Judith,
look forward to continued conversations.
Me too.
So thank you.